It is the 11th of January 2022, today's date. Exactly on this day, 2 years ago, China reported its first death due to the Wuhan virus. A 61-year-old man had died. He was a regular customer of the now notorious seafood market in Wuhan. He died from what Beijing described as a mysterious pneumonia-like illness. China said there was no evidence to suggest that the illness spreads between humans. This was 2 years back. Today, this mysterious illness, which wasn't supposed to spread between humans, has infected the entire world. We have 310 million cases and counting in 2 years. 310 million. 5.4 million deaths and counting. And more variants than one can remember. The latest one is Omicron. It is spreading like fire. The virus has not spared its home country, China. Yet another city has been put under lockdown, the city of Anyang in the Henan province. 5.5 million people in the city have been put under lockdown. Another 13 million people are locked down in Xi'an in the Shaanxi province. And 1.1 million people in the city of Yuzhou, again in the Henan province. How many cases does China have? 110 new cases on Tuesday. And that's nothing compared to the hundreds of thousands of people who are testing positive daily in other parts of the world. But for a few dozen cases, China has put almost 20 million people under lockdown. They can step out only for medical reasons. Non-essential vehicles are banned from the streets. Stores have been shut. China is conducting mass testing and it's mandatory. China insists on having zero COVID cases. Experts say it's not possible. China continues to impose punishing restrictions, but Omicron continues to spread. Cities are reporting cases. Multiple cities, in fact, are reporting cases. Tianjin, Zhengzhou, Wuxi, Shenzhen, they're all reporting new COVID cases, new Omicron cases, despite tough restrictions. Now I want you to look at a map, this map. Look at the cities reporting new cases and look at their distance from Beijing. Tianjin, a city of 14 million people. It's located just 134 kilometers from Beijing. That's a 30-minute train ride. Do you know what's happening in Beijing next month? The Winter Olympics. The virus is at Beijing's doorstep. Just 3 weeks ahead of the Winter Olympics, the games begin on the 4th of February. Most of the venues are located between Tianjin and Beijing, and that explains China's overreaction. It tells you why China is so worked up about a few hundred cases. These tough lockdowns are not so much about saving the people, they're about saving the games and saving face. Imagine headlines that say, China Olympics cancelled because of Made in China virus. Won't look good. So Beijing is pushing headlines like these. WHO says Beijing Olympics anti-COVID plan looks strong. Of course, the WHO says this. I'll tell you what they said last month. Their director, Dr. Tedros, told world leaders to cancel upcoming holiday events to stop the spread of Omicron. I'll give you the exact quote. Dr. Tedros said, difficult decisions must be made in order to protect ourselves. An event cancelled is better than a life cancelled. Very powerful words. Clearly, they do not apply to China. An event cancelled is better than a life cancelled, as long as that event is not the Winter Olympic Games, in which case it should not be cancelled because China's anti-COVID plan is quote-unquote looking strong. Frankly, we're not surprised. The WHO's double standards and China bias is old news. I'll tell you what's new. India's Omicron tally. The numbers have dropped. India recorded over 168,000 cases in the last 24 hours. Remember, the cases had been rising for 13 straight days. But Monday saw a drop. I would like to say this is a good sign, but I must add that testing too has dropped. Fewer tests is equal to fewer cases. The good trend, though, that has sustained is the low hospitalization rate in India. The Health Ministry of India says only 5 to 10% of active cases have needed hospitalization so far. But the situation, they say, is evolving and we cannot afford to let our guard down. Well, that is not the case in the United States, where cases are going up and so are hospital admissions. In the US has set another global record, 1.3 million new cases in one day. Reports say the US Center for Disease Control may recommend better masks to contain Omicron. They expect cases to peak next week. In the UK, over 140,000 new cases have been reported, but the worst hit is the Prime Minister. He was apparently partying when his country was under lockdown. An email has been leaked. It shows that Boris Johnson's office invited at least 100 staff members to a garden party in May 2020. This is different from the December party. This is May 2020. The invite said, "Bring your own booze," BYOB. This happened at a time when the rest of the country was under lockdown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for granting this urgent question, and it is incredibly disappointing but not unsurprising that the Prime Minister, of whom I asked this question, is not here today despite not having any official engagements. And I think, Mr. Speaker, his absence speaks volumes, as does his smirks on the media. The public have already drawn their own conclusions. He can run but he can't hide.
The Partygate scandal has blown up. Criticism is flying faster than the virus from China. People are sharing pictures on social media with one question: what were you doing in May 2020? It's turning into a campaign. People sharing their horror stories as Downing Street partied. The political crisis may continue for the government well after the Omicron wave has subsided. In France, too, cases are rising. More than 140,000 new infections have been reported. The government has introduced a mandatory health pass. If you want to enter a restaurant, if you want to use public transport, you must provide proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test. The decision has met with large-scale protests. The matter is back in Parliament. They may debate on dropping this rule. Next door in Germany, too, protesters are marching against COVID restrictions. They don't like the mandatory vaccine pass. Lawmakers are debating if the rule should be rolled back. Same in Bolivia. Vaccine certificates are mandatory and thousands have hit the streets against this decision. It doesn't look good for Europe. The WHO says Omicron could infect 50% of the European population in the next 2 months. It says a west to east tidal wave could soon emerge and cripple health systems across Europe. For Big Pharma, it's another opportunity. Pfizer says it is set to introduce a new vaccine to specifically target the Omicron variant. The company says it will be ready by March, this new vaccine. The question is, can vaccines play catch-up with new variants? And for how long? In Mexico, the president has tested positive for the second time. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, better known as AMLO, 68 years old, double vaccinated. He also took a booster shot 1 month back, and he has tested positive again. Well, this is what feeds anti-vax hysteria. But it must be highlighted to show that the virus poses a risk to all of us and that science is still catching up. It's a test for all of us. Keep the mask on and stay safe. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.